Hi, I'm Ken Berenger coming to you from the NASDAQ market site in the heart of Times Square. If you're an accredited investor and the idea of being in front of billions of dollars of pre-market money ahead of an asset class that has $1 trillion existing market, if that's not for you, keep scrolling to the next ad. But if it is for you, come inside the studio and I'll tell you more. What can we be involved in that can really grow and protect us in the future? Well, look, here's the facts. While we were out selling before the next bubble popped, $1 trillion market was being eyed by professional money. Now that market is water. Now water, think about it as a commodity. If it's done right, it could trigger the biggest wealth creation event of our lifetime. Now we think water on demand can do just that. So here's what it comes down to. If you're an accredited investor and you would like pre-IPO, pre-institutional, pre-smart money, and you want to find out how that could work for you, I want you to click the link below and go to oc.gold/invest. And let's discover water as an asset together.
And hello, everyone. Welcome to the CEO briefing. It's going to be an excellent one tonight. You're going to love it. Yet another stunning testimonial from the series. We didn't really realize just how much our clients loved us until we started doing these. So I'm so happy that we've been doing this series and we're going to keep on trucking. All right, June 29th, briefing number 217, the world's new water network. I'm going to switch that out to the new tagline, which is water is the people's asset. I like that a lot. Because what the heck is a water network? That doesn't say much, but this I think does mean our sort of insurgent positioning as, hey, we want the regular investor and we love the regular investor. That's why we are where we are today. The usual disclaimers. World Wildlife Foundation had an interesting, I just want to bring this back because this really says what's going on in the world. And this is why our mission is so important. Over 1 billion people lack access to water. 2.7 billion out of 8 billion is ridiculous. Find water scarcity at least 1 month of the year. Inadequate sanitation, again, for 2.4 billion people. 2 million people die each year from diarrheal diseases alone. This is enough to really make us want to do more than, well, the US has got its problems, but the rest of the world, oh my gosh. So many of the water systems have become stressed, of course. There's been a lot of groundwater drying up in recent times. We're seeing, and I just saw a piece of news that literally the planet has shifted on its axis because of too much groundwater depletion. And we haven't stopped. We're still doing it. So agriculture has got to become more efficient about how it does that because it's very inefficient with its water use. And of course, planting rice in the Imperial Valley of California, right? Climate change is an issue. By 2025, that's 2 years from now, 2/3 of the world population may face water shortages. So that's our mission. Keith Rutan, People's Asset, love it. You're absolutely right, sir. All right, here's some good news. Look at Lake Shasta, 145 feet. Wow, that is a big change. Now, of course, why was that? It was because we had a huge distortion in the atmospheric rivers that came in from the Pacific. It was an amazing year for skiing. I remember I wish I could have skied more. Okay, I got in 3 trips, but I would have spent an entire month up there in the mountains if I could have. But no, got to do what I do, right? But nonetheless, it was an amazing year. And unfortunately, it doesn't alter the fundamentals, but at least it gives us some breathing room to do what we got to do, right? Now, what's happening in Sweden? This was sent to us by Pa, who's one of our key investors in Sweden. He basically translated this from the newspaper there. And, because we generally have a good opinion of what happens in Europe. I've seen really great water treatment in Europe, but look, even there, they've got problems. Take a look. So maintenance debt increases in step with the VA network. That must be water treatment or something like that. I'm not sure what VA means, but nonetheless, the network started to age and the infrastructure must not leak, et cetera. 40% of municipalities cutting back on maintenance, poor finance. There are fewer people paying the VA tax, which again must be the sewage tax or it's something like Wasser or something like that, water. They got a problem, right? And yes, a flood occurs in Gavle, for example, $250 million. Okay. But they're also happening more frequently because of changing climate, right? Now, here's the problem, and this is why we need decentralization. It was built in the 60s and 70s, but the requirements are different. So now what do we do, right? What about the pipes, et cetera? All right, so then that is a really interesting thing. And here, again, at the rate that's being replaced in Sweden, and it's also true in the UK, I know that, it's going to take 200 years to replace all the old water pipes. But actually, it needs to be twice as fast. Again, sewage rates are going to rise to 4 times as high. Not great, right? So again, rates are going up. Swedish kroner are going from 700 a month for water to 3,000 a month. This is crazy, right? So this is why businesses want to control their costs with a long-term service contract. So I basically wanted to say that, again, if we can reuse purified wastewater, we can use less drinking water in the future. Great, except that, existing plants are very, very hard to repurpose. So the long story short is we've got a problem in not just in America, but in really evolved countries like Sweden. Sweden's an amazing country, and they really got their act together. So that really underlines the importance of our mission. All right, so I appeared on a show with Hrvoje Moric, and he is just an amazing person. He's out there. He's got one of the very prominent Telegram channels called Geopolitics and Empire. In fact, I will be getting interviewed on that channel in, I believe, 15 July. And so that's a reason why I decided to, I guess he kind of tries you out on his TNT Radio show. And the one on Geopolitics and Empire is on video. This was not. It was shot entirely on radio. This is an incredibly busy radio channel. They're just in constant, they're cranking night and day. If you go to TNT Radio, boom, you can hear whatever's going on. So let's give a quick listen to what went on there. I think it was a pretty interesting show.
Joining the transmission is Riggs Eckelberry, nationally renowned entrepreneur dedicated to revolutionizing the water industry, which has reached a critical breaking point in recent years, despite being essential to the planet's survival. As the founding CEO of OriginClear, Riggs has developed innovative solutions to help businesses face rising water bills by tapping into new investment markets. He's even pioneering the development of water stablecoins, a cryptocurrency backed by water assets with a diverse background in nonprofit management, ocean-going navigation, and crew rowing. Riggs is uniquely qualified to bring change to an outdated and overrun industry. But you're doing absolutely fascinating work with water. And this is a big topic right now. Here in Mexico, where I am, we really could use some. It's really strange stuff is going on. This is the first time I've seen us really without water. I've been here over a decade, and it hasn't rained at all year. And even the Mexican government now is looking into engineering.
There's really 2 major issues. Number one is the incoming water, which is problematic for many reasons. Not enough of it, polluted, et cetera. And then there is the treatment of the wastewater, which it's a scandal, Hrvoje, because 80% of the world's sewage is not treated at all, resulting in us using the oceans as a garbage pit. In May, there was a unicorn that was created out of MIT for wastewater treatment. So water tech is heating up. People understand that. Well, this unicorn is very interesting because it was for treatment, self-treatment by large water users like pharma, chip manufacturers, energy users, food and beverage. But the important part is they're doing their own treatment. And that's happening more and more. As the central infrastructure falls apart, we're seeing a breakup of the water monopoly. And you know what happens with monopolies? It means innovation. Look at what happened when AT&T broke up, and it ultimately led to the internet.
And there's so many things to talk about here with water. People might think it's a boring subject, but I've seen even on your YouTube, you talk about, and I've heard this before, like investing in water, the next major asset class. And then there's, talk about like wars over water will be next.
There is a chart by Lux Research that shows that operation and maintenance costs have done nothing but rise at a rapid rate since 1961 in the water industry. That means that there just has not been infrastructure spend. We're running almost $100 billion behind in the US alone on needed infrastructure investment. The Biden administration's $1.2 trillion initiative, water got 2,000th of it, right? But meanwhile, we get rural broadband. I suspect that water is more important than rural broadband. So I don't know why that is. It's kind of, maybe it's an out of sight, out of mind problem. A lot of people go, well, what's the problem? I turn on my faucet, water comes out, I flush the toilet, water goes away. And I think that's a complacency issue. But that is changing because, of course, these canaries in a coal mine, like Flint and many other places that are not being publicized in the US. So what are we doing about it? Well, first of all, we are focusing on the biggest users by far. Industry and agriculture uses 90% of all water just about everywhere in the world. That means that industry and agriculture are hogs. They are literally hogging the water infrastructure. And so our mission is to pull them off. And when they find out what the deal is, they go, this is great. Why? Number one, they get to recycle their water, which is something that doesn't happen otherwise. So they get a rate reduction. And, in some states, like California, it's a huge savings. And the second thing is they get predictable water rate inflation indexing on these service contracts that we set up. Whereas the sewage rates and water rates in America are just skyrocketing. They're unregulated. No, people don't realize that. And thirdly, they have control over their own water treatment, right? And that is super important. We have clients, of course, for whom we do the incoming water purification. A premium hotel chain uses us because they don't believe just in the bottled water that on your bureau when you check into the room. They want all the water, shower, kitchen, everything to be purified water. It's becoming the norm. So incoming water, great, but we really focus on the wastewater because that is where we can unburden the centralized infrastructure and therefore serve regular people more. Do you know that in Ireland, water is free? Now, it could be free here if the 90% were taken off the grid and the municipalities were servicing the 10%, there'd be plenty of money to go around. And so that's really our mission, is to distribute water treatment to the actual users so that the polluters take care of their own water.
We mentioned wastewater and the lack of treatment as well as water pollution, but what about in some jurisdictions or geographies, the lack of water because of overuse by industry or drought, whether man-made or natural?
You're so right, because, for example, in California, it's a scandal that they use these water-intensive crops. And, they could do hemp and other, water-efficient crops, but they don't. And then they have big drought problems. Number one, agriculture is just using these water-intensive crops. Even rice, like rice paddies. What's up with that? So that's an issue. In addition, we have really, really bad recycling rates in this country. Israel recycles almost 90% of its water. The second in the world is Spain at 20%, the US 1%. And that's really because of how old the infrastructure is. It was built just like our energy grid to be a one-way, just shoot it out, right? Treat it and get rid of it. And recycling is a cheap way to save water, and we don't do it. So that's the second major issue. The third issue, there is a hodgepodge of water rights around the Colorado River Compact. There are people in the system that are paying $25 an acre foot. Meanwhile, San Diego's marginal cost from its desal plant in San Juan Capistrano is $1,350 for the same acre foot. So there's a lot of disparity. There are ways to deal with that. A good friend of mine, for example, helps farmers resell their water rights that they don't use, as opposed to try and just blow through it so they don't lose it. Things like that. On the water drought issue, we have to do everything, but desalination is problematic. They worked for 10 years to get the Huntington Beach desalination plant authorized, and then it was canceled. I mean, why? Because it's a huge energy hog. It It creates a lot of brine issues in the ocean directly around. The objections piled up, and we're just too populated to have a lot of desalination. So we're going to have to deal with it with some creative ways, and as well address the issue of how clean the water is. The water being dirty, and in the Carolinas, for example, you have these poultry farms that are dumping nitrate-heavy water into the rivers, which creates algae issues and kills the fish and so forth. I've been in places where it was done really well. I vacationed a couple of years in a resort in town in Latium, which was on a crater lake. And there were farms all around the lake going down to the lake. Normally, because of fertilizer runoff, the lake itself would be just all choked with green algae. Well, Hrvoje, it was limpid. You could drink the water because the Italians really paid attention to the runoff issue. But I don't think we can expect a government to fix it. That's over. I think we have to look to initiatives like Water on Demand, which is this water as a service project that we have to help industry and agriculture get off the grid without a lot of capital expense. That's because we basically replace their metered experience with the city with a metered experience with us. So we become their private utility. And our modular drop-in-place machines, things like that multiplied 1,000 times, because one company doesn't make all the change happen, is going to make it work. Now, what's unique about us is the funding. There's a lot of players jumping into water tech, but they are Morgan Stanley infrastructure partners, or they're VCs, or they're major funds. Somebody said in Forbes that the first trillionaire will be in water. Well, we'd rather have 1 million millionaires in water, which is why we're the only place that an investor can go in as a regular investor and invest in this new income bearing asset called water. And I think that's a big key to creating a movement when you get a lot of people involved, and it's not just the upper crust, which I consider such a problem. I would be getting off on my soapbox if I started about the erosion of the middle class, but we're dedicated to making water the people's asset.
I want to get into that investment part, because I talk a lot about the whole Great Reset and where we're going. Smart people like Joel Kotkin, he talks about the neo-feudalism that we're going into, neo-techno-feudalism, where they're wiping out the middle class. And it's like going back to the Middle Ages, where it's just going to be aristocracy and the lower class.
I really believe in a decentralized solution. We saw that happen when Africa got its cell phones. They just bypassed all the landlines. They were just done. So it was just, cell towers and phones, and that was that. That's really the way to go, is to decentralize the whole water network. First of all, this is an actual benefit. It's much more resistant to attacks. The history of the internet with DARPA and so forth, and it was built to resist attack, and it was built to be decentralized. Similarly, we think that water should be more and more decentralized so that it is more attack-proof. But it's also healthier, because let's take India, for example. They have no water infrastructure. They're spending all their money on big hydrological programs up in the Nepal headwaters because they have to. But down in places like New Delhi, the sewage situation is terrible. Well, you're not going to build $1 trillion on central water in India. It's just not going to happen. But you can put in programs where it's these compact drop-in-place systems with some kind of government rebate program, whatever. And it's much more feasible to do these things. So we have two approaches to the problem. The first one is technological. We invested since 2018 in a line of patented heavy-duty plastic encased systems that literally you drop them on a pad, plug them in, and they go. And that has been just a huge success. That division tripled its business between 21 and 22. And the second part, of course, is this idea of letting end users not have to pay up front. Those two things we think are going to enable a lot of this to happen as on a kind of a wildfire basis. Now, the second thing you asked, where are we doing business? Well, we are U.S. centric. We do actually, strangely enough, we do a lot of embassies all over the world, but we're not allowed to disclose. They're all coded. They all have code words. Embassy, Niagara, whatever. And who knows? It might be in Honduras. We have no idea. But other than that, we're U.S. centric. And we really want to make North America work with this idea of water on demand, this water as a service concept, because then I want to replicate it. Take the water on demand network with all of its, real-time service providers on the ground and the software to run the control systems and so forth, the billing, et cetera, and then replicate it. So get a partner for the Middle East, get a partner for the Malaysian Peninsula, get a partner for Japan, et cetera, and they replicate it for their region, copy paste. And I think that is the way to get this thing done fast. So for the time being, we're focusing on North America. We're seeing tremendous booms occur in places like North Texas there's a residential boom. This housing developments are going up so fast they don't have time to put in sewage. And so they get their self-sufficient systems. And then there's the whole deglobalization trend is driving manufacturing back to the US. And we're going to have a boom in state-of-the-art factories being set up in places like South Texas, North Mexico, that automatically have attached co-located water treatment. Why? Because, again, there won't be any time to build the utilities. And so I foresee just that is going to be, I think, a mega boom, regardless of the politics of the situation. Deglobalization is a fact. One of the dominoes that fell as a result of pandemic is companies realized just how vulnerable they were to a long supply chain. And nobody had thought that through before. So that's going to be a boom factor, and it's going to reflect across all industries. Water will be very affected.
Water wars, I think, is a bit hyped up, but do you think there's any substance to this idea that, in the near future, maybe some nations might be fighting over water?
A big reason why China made moves on Tibet was to control the headwaters of the Himalayas. There's also a big reason why there's peace between Israel and its neighbors is that it provides water. For example, it's a big provider of water to Jordan, which is landlocked. But the same is also true that you can have a peace break out if you have water exchange. Things will trend towards peace, and that peace will break out, and then water will be a major factor.
Last year, I was in Croatia. I'm a huge coffee freak, and I had an amazing Italian coffee that I'd make every day in my house in Croatia. And then when I came back here in Mexico, I had the same pot, the same coffee, and it tasted totally different. And I think it just came down to it was the water, because especially Croatia has some of the cleanest water anywhere.
You're right, because in Croatia, for example, the water has not been messed with, so it's naturally mineralized, and so it'll have that particular quality. I've got a reverse osmosis system under my sink, and it's got a remineralization step and so forth. But for sure, it doesn't come out as the same water as what you experienced in Dubrovnik or wherever you were. The wonderful water that we experience in Europe, for example, is really impossible to replicate. Just like, a French baguette is only good in France. What can I say? It has a lot to do with the water. Those baguettes are absolutely driven by water, because you can take literally the same wheat and the same ingredients and do it in America, and it will not be the same baguette. So there you go.
Yeah, you finally solved definitively the mystery for me, because I was just swearing like everything's the same except for the water, and it's just the difference is just shocking. It tastes totally. It's very different.
Well, Hrvoje, I'm a super optimist when it comes to water, because we're seeing cracks in the sort of central homogeneous, big water setup, and that is, it's putting it in the hands of investors and regular smaller companies. I think it's the beginning of a water renaissance, and I'm excited.
And maybe to discuss the investment aspect in water, as you say, the next major asset class, how are some ways people can invest in water, and so help build out this very important infrastructure, but also be able to get something back from it?
Unfortunately, there's not many ways currently to invest in water. Of course, people can invest in the big water companies, which is a stable but relatively slow-moving industry, because they primarily rely on working with the central utilities. And also, there's ETFs. But one thing that's lacking is what they have in the energy industry, which is the master limited partnerships, which has become in energy a $300 billion segment with about 60 partnerships operating beautifully and complementing big oil. And so we chose to mimic that model, but for water. So it's basically water like an oil well, I would like to say, where we establish these buckets of water projects. Remember that we've now, in this model, we haven't sold the equipment. We've signed a service contract, and the equipment that goes on site, which is modular, so it can be taken away, it remains our asset. And the investor then invests in that bucket of projects and gets, a profit share, and also can put in a lien on that equipment to enforce their royalties. So it is a true asset. The one thing that, unfortunately, energy MLPs get these huge tax deductions because, of course, it's energy, it's big oil, and efforts to widen those tax breaks to other industries have not succeeded so far. So what we do is we offer a lot of equity positions in both OriginClear, the public company that I've been running now for 14 years. But in addition, this new startup, Water on Demand, so the investor gets the dividends, but also healthy equity in the parent and then this subsidiary. It's a very good way to be an early investor. It's still early in water, right? I liken it to Apple 1984, when the smart people were mortgaging their homes to buy Apple stock because the Mac and the Lisa, they went, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. This is happening with water, but the opportunities for regular investors are few. We're saying, look, we want to work with the regular investor. We love the regular investor, just like how a political campaign with a lot of small investors is healthier than one funded by a few big ones. The same way works with this program. We're moving fast with this, lots of good stuff happening, and we'd love to bring accredited investors into it.
And keep up the great work. I'm also getting excited about water, and I think you bought me some virtual coffees as well, and I thank you for that. The buy me coffee, I think that was you.
Well, I gotta keep your addiction going. Come on, Hrvoje, it's a great pleasure.
Thank you so much, Hrvoje Moric, for being at TNT Radio. Welcome back anytime.
Of course, most of you will know the points that I was making, but basically Hrvoje was really resonating with that, and he got it. And water has become strategic. This is a commentator on all the big issues of our time. He comments on everything. If you go to the Geopolitics and Empire Telegram channel, you'll see. He's a very daring and outspoken commentator. He gets all the top alternative media personalities up there. So it meant something that this resonated for him. It means that we have the right thing, especially this idea of being the people's asset. I think it's super important. All right. So with that, I'm going to take us to the testimonial. This week's testimonial is so rock star. Here we go with Mr. Jimmy Moon. Yeah. Munson Point. This is the story a few weeks ago that you heard Dan Early tell about a housing development right on the frontier of Oklahoma. And let's see what he has to say, this guy. This is the actual professional who manages the whole development.
Northern Texas right now is growing at such a pace. They're expecting 20 to 25,000 people to come into this area in the next year to 3 years, and we're just trying to stay ahead of the game. I'm a water and wastewater professional licensed, and environmental is my specialty. I do consulting work for the Munson Group. They needed a wastewater plant. We were looking for higher end technology.
This is a system that progressive water treatment through the Modular Water Systems product line. What is really unique about this particular project is that it's a membrane bioreactor type of technology. It is our plug-and-play system. It is a system that as soon as it's offloaded and as soon as you connect a pipe in and a pipe out and make your power connection, you're immediately ready to water up the unit and to put it into operation treating domestic wastewater.
Dan Early was the hero, and I was going through 2 different companies, and we won on this one. Traditional way, you're looking at 2 years for construction, maybe up to 3, and then you have like a 20-year lifespan usually. These treatment units here are warranted for 50 years. Dan Early, he said it would be a nice, clean effluent, and it's above what we thought it would be. The water's so clean. Yeah, free to clear. Treated effluent, yes. You can use it for water irrigation, put it on road dust. All the water that we're going to treat, we're going to keep it here in this development. This treatment unit itself is up to 10,000 gallons per day. Right now we're running about 1,200 gallons per day. We have it set up in our permit where we can go up to 30,000 gallons per day. And doing that, we'll just have to add another box and then another box. I have people that have already inquiring about it. The word's getting around on how efficient and how the production of the water is so pristine. You can see the bottom down there.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody wants to get it, especially around lake units like this, because you're not really big enough to have a permanent treatment plant, but these plants can either be permanent or moved or added on, and that makes a really nice buffer. We have a special app that's for this unit itself, so we can set alarms, we can do settings without having to come out to the plant itself. The process is sophisticated, but it's very user-friendly. It's all automation. It runs itself, and it's satisfying that we're going to be able to use the water reuse and reclamation. That's very important to us. And then at some point in time, we may could even sell some water. Makes me feel good when we have a project that comes in and everybody's on board and we're getting the results that we wanted. So it's just like a miracle how it works.
Just like a miracle, it's how it works. That's a beautiful thing indeed. I'm very proud of Dan Early and his team, Rob Litos, and we had Mark Mazzuchet. He did, we are actually replacing him. He went to another job. We wish him well, but a great team and doing great things. We're super proud of them. The technology is brilliant, but also the execution. And here's what's cool. I mean, it would have taken weeks to have, what do you say, a couple of years to build this thing normally, and only 20 years lifetime, whereas this thing has a 50-year warranty for the envelope. Amazing. Just amazing. All right. So Keith Rutan, more people come, just add a box. Brilliant. Exactly. They're permitted to go up to 30K. Right now it's 10,000 gallons a day. Add another box, 20,000, another box, 30,000, which is more than enough. And he said, hey, we might even end up selling some water down the road. So that's super cool. We're coming to the end here. Let's give you some upcoming New to the Street airings. July 1st, 3:30 p.m. EST on Newsmax. That I believe is Saturday. And then on the 3rd, which is Tuesday, 10:30 p.m. PST, which is not a bad slot, especially it's a day. A lot of people take that day off, or they're relaxing for the July 4th. 9:30 p.m. PST is also a good time on July 13th, which that's a Thursday. July 17th, 10:30 p.m. PST, that is a Monday. And then finally on the 29th, it's a 6:30 p.m. EST, 9:30 p.m. PST, which is a Saturday. So some good slots, and it's going to continue to air the excellent show that we did with Ken Berenger. And it's actually stirred up quite a bit of interest. We've been getting people inquiring from it. All right. So with that, Ken, my man, jump in.
I thought I solved my problem with my light. I guess I didn't. All right. So back to a new computer, I suppose. I was told, AJ, if you're listening, I trusted you. All right. He said, no, you're not front lit enough. But okay. Anyway, moving on. Just ignore the flickering. So Croatian, yes?
Yes, exactly.
Croatia and Italy both have the old stone aquifers, don't they?
Croatia has stunning infrastructure. You're right. Beautiful castles. I mean, it's an amazing country. Dubrovnik, for example. There's a number of wonderful, like the whole Croatian Riviera is one of the finest places to go because it's beautiful and cheap.
I was talking more about, he was referring to the natural mineralization, and it's probably one of the few places on Earth where the water is really, really, really pristine like that, right? Industrialization, while excellent, fantastic for an economy, is going to have an effect on natural resources, right? So we're expecting a reshoring of all of these Chinese based manufacturers.
Not all by any means, but even
No, you know what I mean. But
but even a small fraction. People don't realize just how much there is, right? Now,
huge.
China is going to remain a giant manufacturer, but there's the even 2 or 3% is a vast amount of construction and employment.
Correct. So, right now, I saw they were crowing the other day that they made up about 30% of the world's manufacturing, while the U.S. is at 16%. So with a reshoring, if they lose 2, like you said, 2, 3, 4, 5 percentage points, that actually tilts it dramatically. They don't have a lot of focus on preserving the environment over there. These are folks that smoke 4 packs of unfiltered cigarettes a day. So in other words, it's not a health conscious society the way we are. But and I'm excited about the fact that our friend in Mexico said the Baja Peninsula is at 110% employment. They have a 1 million square foot shortage of manufacturing space. That's now.
In Tijuana, yeah.
Right. That's now, right? 1 million square feet is just absolutely enormous, right? If that scales out and as it graduates into northern, through Texas, we've often said that water will be at the forefront, or it'll be the focal point of the great American manufacturing renaissance. So what I spoke about in the New York interview was, right now a renaissance can't happen unless infrastructure. You can't have manufacturing without infrastructure. We could put these things in as faster than the building, and I believe that as this integrates as part of that co-location strategy, building designs will come with these systems as part of the building design, which completely eliminates the need for that larger gross infrastructure. That is, the implications of that are just absolutely huge.
Yes. Here's an interesting thing. I got involved in the .com pretty early, but I really didn't step into a company that was going into the internet space until 1995, 96. And by then, if you were not part of the PayPal mafia, you didn't make your millions, right? So the people who were positioned to benefit from the .com were the people who were in Silicon Valley in the late 80s, early 90s. So as it started to happen, they were there. I arrived a little bit late. I was busy having fun. I was ski bumming for my 40th birthday in 1992. I had a ball. It was great. But yeah. I missed out on that. And here's the important part. This is the early stage for water. Yeah. So people are going to come along later and there's a water boom. Yeah, but they won't be part of that mafia.
Right. And by the time, and you know this, right? By the time Stuart Viney's talking about it, real wealth has already been built. So
when Kramer's talking about it, it's already crashed.
It's already over. It's like, well, when he's saying buy it, definitely sell it. Right. So fortunately, as my Weisenheimer line in the video says, I don't think water is going to go out of style anytime soon. If it does, we have a different set of problems. But what I was going to say is Elon Musk's wealthiest man in the world today, but his original fortune was built with what? PayPal.
Yep.
He was part of that PayPal mafia, right? So there is an entire new generation of I think generational wealth that can be built off of the global expansion of water. We've got the right model. We've got the right technology. Execution comes with literally having an answer to other people that would normally be your natural competitors can become natural partners. That's what this whole model creates. It creates a desire for synergy. Like, okay, Israel and the other states in the Middle East are friendly now. Why? Because Israel provides the water. So if a company that would normally be a natural competitor, if you're solving a major problem and integrating them into this model, well, all of a sudden they're natural partners. That's the way I see this kind of rolling out.
Here's another very good point. I misspoke in the radio broadcast when I said that Jordan is landlocked. It's not. It has an outlet to the Gulf of Aqaba. If you remember Lawrence of Arabia, where they're attacking Aqaba from the desert. Anyway, way before your time. But anyway, so they do have an outlet to the water. So then why don't they pipe in their own water? Why? Because Israel has got the water tech, right? So it's about technology. Jordan could just go ahead and do it, except they don't have the technology infrastructure that Israel has. And that's another very important thing, is that you've got to have that tech.
Now, another point, to your point, Jordan, very wealthy nation. They have the money to buy and pay the premium, but what would they lose? They would lose dramatic amounts of time.
Right.
Right. In other words, it's easier to buy the capability than build the capability. We came along early to build it, so it now can be almost licensed out.
Kevin Pruitt, our content manager, answered the question, what does VA system mean? And what it is, Vatten is water, which is what I thought. Well, I said Wasser, but that's more German. VA in this context is probably water and sewage, i.e. fresh water in and wastewater out. Vatten och avlopp. There we go. So a VA system that is basically Sweden's water system.
Oh, that's Swedish. Okay.
Exactly. Anyway, so that takes care of that. So we're going to wrap it up pretty soon. Fill out your Zoom survey. Very, very important. And talk to Ken, because he's got the good stuff. He's got the insider information. And so. Well,
I wouldn't say insider.
I'm giving you, of course you don't. You're not going to give up inside information. We're a public company. But I'm trying to say it's the inside dope, right? It's the dope.
Right. I have the inside story.
Exactly. So
I have that behind the scenes thing.
Exactly.
Where they pour water on each other and they fight. And, I have that stuff.
You're the wizard. You're the wizard. The Wizard of Oz. That's not necessarily a compliment, I know. But anyway, so guys, it's been a pleasure having you. Tom Liaukos, thank you both for a good meeting. It was a lot of fun. Thank you.
AJ is defending his decision. You didn't get the light. I told you to. Okay.
No. But I said to him, let's have our professional videographer take care of Ken. Stephen will manage this whole thing.
Yeah. Stephen will say, Ken, get a new computer. All right. No, I'm only kidding.
All right.
All right.
Anyway, so let's wrap it up. Thank you, Ken, and keep up the good work. We like where things are going. Modular Water is kicking it, as you can tell. So thank you, everyone. Have a good night and peace out. See you next week. I'll have another great show.
Have a wonderful holiday weekend, everybody.
Happy July 4th.